Hello everyone, I'm Jim Durrett, Mayor of Montgomery County, and I'm pleased to bring another one of our Spotlight series to you. And this is where we shine the light on folks that really make county government work. And this is a little bit different than the other folks that we've interviewed. This is a judge. Judge Sharon Massey-Grimes, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm great. General Sessions Judge.
And juvenile. Mm-hmm.
I want to get into that, but before we get into that, I want to just let everybody, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself. You can go back as far as you want to.
Okay, let's see. My parents were in the military, and my dad retired here in 1968 after a 22-year career in the Army, and we grew up here, all five of us. There are 5 kids, and I went to public school for a while, and then high school at Clarksville Academy. Then I went off to college at the University of Kentucky and finished my college career at Austin Peay. And I've just lived here basically my whole life.
Yeah.
Without telling my age.
Well, I've known your family a long time.
Right.
I honestly do not believe, don't understand why you went to the University of Kentucky instead of the University of Tennessee, but that's okay. That's okay. So what got you started in law?
First, actually, when I graduated college, I started working as a social worker. My bachelor's degree was in social work, and I actually started right here in this plaza working for the Department of Human Services. Then they split, became Children's Services. I was about 21, and I worked in the courts. So while I was there, I worked there for 13 years, investigating child abuse. Then I was a supervisor. Then I spent some time with the department in Nashville. And then while I was doing that, I became interested in the law because I was spending a lot of time there. So while I was working full time, I went to law school at night. And
I did not know that.
I went, worked 8 to 4:30. When I finished work at 4:30, I went to Nashville School of Law, finished about 10:30, 2 nights a week for the first 2 years, then 3 nights a week the next 2 years. And then in 1998, I became a lawyer.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
I don't know how I did that. I really don't know how I did that. Some days I don't know how I made it.
That's pretty impressive. That I didn't realize that. And so when you started your law degree, or when you started your law practice, did you have a specialty?
Not initially. It was just a general practice. You know, when you live here for so many years and you know so many people.
Yeah.
And I grew up on the north side of town. And so you just really have a lot of people that you want to, that want your services or need help. And so I didn't, but as time went on, my specialty became adoptions. And I'm still in the American Academy of Adoption Attorneys. There are only about 350 in the country. And so that was my passion, my favorite thing to do. Always, not always, but most of the time a happy ending.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Well, did you always want to be a judge?
Not really.
Well, this is going to be a hard question.
That's okay.
because you took the seat that your husband had.
That's
your
right.
late husband.
Yes.
And I know that has to be tough, but I think that's what drove you to want to be a judge.
Well, I always say that I had a great teacher. He was a judge for 22 years, but prior to that, he was a lawyer for 20 years. So he had a legal career of about 40 years. And so it happened in a way that I wasn't expecting it to happen. But as it turns out, the community has shown great support for him and me. And I'm adjusting better now.
Yeah, awesome.
It's easier.
I have to ask you this question, and I probably shouldn't. How was that first day on the bench?
Whew. I think the county commission happened on January 11th, and the next morning at 8:30. By the way, it was a late night at my house with a lot of people, but the next morning at 8 o'clock I was sworn in, and at about 8:45 I was getting ready to get on the bench. It was just kind of a whirlwind. In fact, the whole year and a half since Ray's death has been kind of a whirlwind,
Yeah.
But it's starting to slow down a little, and now now I'm running unopposed, on my own name. And so it's getting easier. Every day it gets easier. It's not the best of circumstances, but
Right.
it gets easier.
Right. Kind of has to be a sigh of relief you're running unopposed.
A big sigh of relief. A big sigh of relief. Some of my friends who are also running unopposed, we all talk about it's really an easy summer.
Yeah.
Compared to some other campaigns. In 2004, I was campaign manager for Curtis Johnson when he ran against Tommy Head, and that was a long, hot summer.
Woo, I bet. So I want to talk about general sessions a little bit,
Okay.
but I want to talk about recovery court too,
Okay.
because I think that's something that a lot of people don't know.
Okay.
So you and I were talking just yesterday.
Right.
General sessions. How many general sessions judges does Montgomery County have?
Montgomery County has 4 general sessions judges, all of which also have juvenile court duties. So we're called general sessions and juvenile court judge. There are 4 of us. 3 of us do general sessions and juvenile. 1 of them specifically does juvenile because we have so many cases.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
He's busy too.
Yeah. So do you have like a normal day?
I am the only one of the 4 of us that does every different kind of case we have. I think there are 5 or 6 different kinds. For example, we have adult criminal cases, we have adult civil, which is small claims court, orders of protection, juvenile court. Both one day is civil, which is custody,
Mm-hmm.
and one day is delinquent and unruly and truancy. And then another day, once a month, I do nothing but child support.
Wow.
So I think that's 6 different kinds of courts, and I'm the only one that does all those different kinds.
So on a typical day, are you doing adult civil, then maybe some adult criminal, and then whatever?
Mondays, for every day I do something different. Mondays, I'm doing in the morning juvenile court, in the afternoon adult civil cases, small claims. Tuesday I do orders of protection in the morning, criminal cases in the afternoon. Wednesday I have criminal all day long. For example, today I have all people who are inmates. I'm dealing with their cases. Thursday I do criminal in the morning and juvenile custody in the afternoon. And Friday I do juvenile truancy and delinquent cases. So 3 days a week I'm dealing with juveniles. 2.5 I'm dealing with.
And I don't know, I don't want to step over a judicial principle, but are any of them harder than the others?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The hardest ones are the ones that you have some effect on someone's life, be it a parent or a child. You have to have a sense of read between the lines. If a child tells you something in the middle of the court and there's 100 people sitting out there, you have to know when to stop that conversation and take it to the back, or and read their faces. But one of the hardest things is, and this leads into the recovery court. I left that out. On Wednesdays during the lunch hour, I do recovery court. So the hardest is to see the struggles of our community. Drugs is a terrible situation right now. I just read that I think last year 103,000 people died from an overdose, and so it's just in 2020 it was 91,000. Now it's just climbing. So that is the hardest part. I think that's what your question was.
Yeah.
I'm sure. The hardest part is to see the struggle, and then if you're making a hard decision about custody, one person is going to win or lose. Or I try to make it where everybody has some part of a win in that kind of case.
Yeah. And I know Sharon, I should call you Judge.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No.
But, Judge, I know that I've heard, I'd heard Ray say that talking about people that he sees in the community that came before him as a juvenile, that he really, a lot of the things that y'all do, it can create a path for a child that can change their lives forever and change it to the good.
Right. And sometimes you have to make some hard decisions about those people and things that at the moment they may not appreciate, but I still have people sending me letters and stopping me in the grocery store, telling me the difference that he made in their lives.
Wow.
And, you know, so many people came to show their respects for him, and they didn't know him personally, but as a child, he helped them get through whatever struggles they were having. And that's the greatest accomplishment you can really have, is to make a difference in someone's life.
My daughter had a fender bender. She cut through a parking lot, and she hit a car, and she was cited by the police, and so she had to go in front of Ray, and my wife went, and this has probably been 20 years ago, maybe not 20, but probably 15 or 16, and she went in front of Ray, and Ray asked my wife, he said, well, did you punish her? And she said, no, I didn't. And he said, well, I'm going to. I'm revoking her license for 6 months.
In his later years, he lessened some of his harsh punishments. I'll never forget the time that some kids that went to a prominent school broke the windows out of a church. And he was so upset that he made those kids, a little bit unorthodox, really, but made them go to that church and attend church there every day for a while. Some of their parents liked it, some of them didn't.
Yeah.
But, you know, I know that one of those young men became, I think, an organist or a piano player or something at that church for many years.
That's so neat. That's so neat. Well, I still want to talk about recovery court, but I want to just talk a little bit more about the caseload that y'all have. I don't think the general public knows the pace of people that are in and out of that court center every day and in and out of your courtroom every day.
I know yesterday we dealt with 442 cases without the juveniles. Those were adult cases that came through those doors only for the second floor.
442.
442 cases.
Wow.
And that was between, that number is between the 3 judges. And then of course we had Veterans Treatment Court going on. And then upstairs on the 3rd floor where Judge Barnes is, he was dealing with a 48-page something docket of juveniles.
Wow.
So
not everybody that's listening to this has ever been to court, and hopefully most everybody that listens to it doesn't have to go to court.
Right.
But for those who haven't been to court, you don't really, does General Sessions Juvenile, do you like have a trial where there's attorneys presenting case, you know, a defendant and a plaintiff and all of that?
The division of the courts is that General Sessions is known really as the Misdemeanor Court. But we do have serious offenses. Misdemeanors could be domestic violence, DUI, reckless driving, any driving offenses, simple possession, marijuana. But we also see felony cases that are there that the person's been arrested and they need a preliminary hearing. And that's when we have a hearing and determine whether or not there's enough proof to bind it over to the grand jury. When those cases are bound over, we also don't do divorce. We don't do any divorce downstairs. Those cases and the ones that are bound over that are felony cases are dealt with by the circuit and chancery courts.
Okay.
So
well, I want everybody to know that, because, you know, when you say judge, a lot of people just think, oh, well, you know, she's the judge of everything.
Well, I am kind of a mixed bag over there.
You are.
But most cases start through the General Sessions.
Yeah.
We're kind of like the pipeline. So that's why we have so many numbers.
Okay.
They all come through us most of the time. There's a few exceptions, but most of them. And then if they are bound over, then they go. And if you're having a jury trial, we do not have any jury trials at the General Sessions level.
Okay. So let's talk about recovery court.
Near and dear.
I know. So I don't know that I can ask you a question other than just tell us what recovery court is. Recovery
court was originally called drug court. Back in 2005, the Judge Ray Grimes and a group of professionals started the recovery court, then called drug court. And it is for people who have addiction issues but for those addiction issues, they wouldn't be in this system. So if you are charged with a crime and it's related to your addiction and your recovery, that's how you come into the court. It's a different model. The model is a treatment model, not not an incarceration model. And we try numerous different types of therapy, treatment. We send people to treatment, we monitor them, we require them to report more than the normal person would report to probation. It's a type of probation, but it's intense.
Yeah.
It usually lasts, some people are there for a year, some are there 18 months, some have been there since before I became a judge. And we work through their addiction and recovery. We also now have what's called an alcohol track, that the drug of choice is alcohol. And that's what's causing their legal issues. And, you know, it's hard. We sometimes use incarceration as a sanction, but we try to do it in a positive way. Try not to use it as punishment, but positive reinforcement. Sometimes we have to use negative reinforcement.
Right.
But, you know, sometimes I have to make the bad decisions, but we make it as a team. I don't wear a robe. I'm in a team concept with the people. I'm on the floor with them. You know, talking to them, trying to encourage them, trying to get them to encourage each other one step at a time. And sometimes I have to put people in jail, but most of the time that's to save their life. If they're, I can give you an example, someone's, you know, fallen off their recovery track and they are using fentanyl, and I know that we know because we're testing them, we test them almost every day. We are testing them and they're using fentanyl. Sometimes if I don't have a place, if we don't have a bed that can take them, which is an issue, I may have to save their life. Now they'll be mad. Yeah. Their families will be mad. Yeah. And think it's unfair, but I just tell them, you know, my biggest fear is for one of these kids or someone, a participant in one of our recovery courts, to not show up and something bad happen. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have been to a bunch of the graduations or whatever the ceremonies are called, and it's pretty remarkable to hear the stories behind the people. And you know, when people start talking about, you know, 600, 700 days of sobriety and stuff like that. I mean, it just really makes you sit back and think. And you know, there's people that have struggles. And there's people that are addicted to stuff, but that opportunity is, I just think it's fantastic. I did a girl finished a week or two ago, and she, in her 30s, she hasn't been sober until she got in the recovery court for 7 years. Wow. And so she finished, she's now about 600 days sober. And when I read what she wrote, we have them write an exit interview and answer questions. And when I read what she wrote about how her life had changed from when she was actively using and now, it's just a great feeling to have been a part of just a small part of their life, because they have to do it. Yeah. You know, there's a saying, you stretch out your hand and give it to someone else and let them, you know, they can take it or not. But we try real hard. Wow. That is just, I mean, that's heartwarming. So, you know, in doing these interviews, we've talked to a lot of our department heads, elected officials, you know, whether it's like the sheriff or building and codes or whomever. Any short-term or long-term challenges for y'all sitting on the bench? You know, numbers, we're trying different, I'm currently trying to work with the DA and try to make the process easier for lawyers, law enforcement agencies, trying to streamline it, because right now we have a situation where we don't have enough district attorneys, prosecutors, so they are, the wait is a long time. It's a long time for the people. Yesterday, I bet people got there at 9 o'clock for the 9 o'clock court, and they were still there at noon. Wow. And so we are trying to do some alternative ways of getting people through the system, and you know, they need their jobs, and we want them to be able to get to work and not miss work. And, so. Well, and I know, and we won't get into it, but I know juvenile rehabilitation and that is a big challenge. When we have to put a juvenile in a bed, we don't have that capability here,
I know it taxes our resources with the sheriff's department,
Right.
everybody else, and then sometimes it's just hard to find a place in Middle Tennessee that'll accept them.
Females pose a real challenge to
Yeah.
us. Females, the beds are very few, and that right now seems to be one of our biggest challenges is female beds. But we have to just utilize the resources that we have and do the best we can to keep this community safe. And I can't spend my time all day wishing for something that may or may not come.
Right.
I have to use what I can and try to use alternative methods of treatment and rehabilitation. And a transfer hearing sometimes is inevitable for violent crimes. It's not something that I don't like doing them. I don't like to see a juvenile go from the juvenile system to the adult system, because that is a failure to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we just do what we can with what we have. And I try not to detain people too much, because I do know late at night it's hard on those officers, and the next day they'll be back in court. So we just try to do the best we can.
Yeah.
Sometimes too many beds is not a good thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense. So is there anything with being a judge that, I don't want to say that you can't do, but do you, like, to sit on the bench, do you have to divest yourself of certain things? I mean, could you legally still practice law?
No.
Okay.
A full-time judge. Now, there are smaller counties have part-time judges.
Okay.
They still have a law practice, but when you are appointed or elected, you only have 6 months to wrap it up. When I was appointed, I thought 6 months, that's a long time. It took me that and more, and with the help of some good friends that were willing to take on some of my difficult cases. I had a full caseload.
Yeah.
I mean, hundreds that I was actively working on, so.
And so 6 months
Since
seemed
6
like
months
a
was
long
not a
time,
long
but it needed 6 years probably.
But if a lot of the lawyers, after the way it happened, they were all so kind and jumped in and helped take over. And some clients are not so happy to lose their lawyer.
Right.
You've been with them for a long time. Sometimes they don't like to get a new lawyer, but I'm still having people call. We still have the title company. My daughter runs the title company. We still have people calling asking for, my legal services. But
So, totally off subject from what we've been talking about.
let me go back to that.
Okay.
Are there things you can't do? There are things that you have to temper. Sometimes we lose our cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you're human. And sometimes I just have to temper myself, because I come from a long line of family members that just say it. And so you have to just try not to say everything you're thinking.
Do you ever just bang, bang, bang that gavel?
I don't even use a gavel.
I don't either. I'm not a judge, but they have one up there during commission meetings. I never used it.
Yeah. Ray would say, sometimes he'd say, I don't want a gavel there, I might throw it at somebody. so I'm kind of the same opinion. There's a gavel, but it's in his office.
So totally off subject. Lifelong resident of Montgomery County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, for the most part.
Yeah. So there's something about it that you like.
Love this community.
Yeah. So if you left here and you're walking back in the court center and you see somebody and you strike up a conversation and you find out that they're thinking about moving here, what's Judge Sharon Massey-Grimes tell them why they should move to Montgomery County?
The first thing I would say is, we're not known as the best community in the country for no reason. And we are just such a mixing bowl of every day you're gonna meet somebody from someplace different. And all you have to do is talk to them, and they've got an interesting story, whether they're associated with the military or they just picked us. I'm amazed at the people that pick us out of just off the map and say, I think I'm gonna live in Montgomery County. And it's just a friendly place to live. And I recently went to, I'm not gonna say, it was up north a little ways, but I would say it's crossing the northern line, and I could not wait to get home. The people were not near as friendly as we are. And I just said, I don't know if it's what's going on around here, but I think, honestly, I think COVID had a lot to do with it. I think people hid behind a mask for so long that it caused them not to be so friendly. When I went to conferences, you know, you couldn't see someone smile at you.
Yeah.
And so I think it put people in a habit of not being as friendly to their fellow man. So
Yeah.
I think if I were to say to someone why they should come here, is I think we're one of the most friendly places to live. You can't walk down the sidewalk and not speak to somebody, or them speak to you,
You're right.
whether you like them or not.
You're right. You're right. So I have one last question. In your current role,
Mhm.
what would you say has been one of your most gratifying experiences as a judge?
Really, the most gratifying would be to see people their lives are changed every day by some little something that I might have said or done. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a person in recovery, but I try to treat every person who's in front of that bench with respect, whether they're coming from the jail, whether they are down on their luck, and I try not to treat them any differently than somebody that's sitting beside me. And so my most gratifying is to see them maybe smile when they're having a bad day, even in the worst of circumstances.
Wow. That's all. They gave me chill bumps. That was cool. So we're gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna do something different with the camera, because I can say this. I can say, vote Sharon Massey-Grimes
That's
for
right.
General Sessions Judge, because she's running unopposed.
That's right.
And so you're gonna be reelected in August, and it's a eight-year term.
Mhm.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Judge, and thank you so much for
So
coming
good
in.
to see you.
So good to
Thank
see you. Thank you.